So welcome to our meditation time together. It is an honor to get to spend these few minutes together with you. I hope that you also feel that it's an honor to spend them with yourself. And so as we each begin to settle into the space where we are, just let your body begin to relax. Let your eyes begin to soften or close. And let your breath reflect what you need. If you need a slow and calming breath, give that to yourself. If you need a pace of breath that's a little more vibrant, keeping you more alert and more aware, then give yourself that. But let this moment be one where you choose what you need in this moment, what you need in this practice. And as you're beginning to settle, really anchoring yourself to that spot where you're seated or where you're lying down. You're going to notice the sounds in the room around you. You're going to notice the feeling of the air, the sensations throughout your body. But for these few minutes, let's try and let those things go. The sounds and the distractions will still be there. The sensations in the body will still move around. The air will still make its presence known and how it feels on your skin and in your space. But just notice your ability to pull away from all of that for just a little bit. And the way we do that is we focus on that breath. The slow, deep in-breath and the slow, full out-breath. And we settle in a little more. And so in these times that we're spending together across these days, across these next few weeks, we are exploring the pillars of joy. Because there is something universal about this idea of joy. We all want it. We all strive for it in our lives. Sometimes our methods are not always exactly what they need to be, but joy is something every human being is seeking. Not so much just happiness or contentment or satisfaction, but true, deep, authentic joy. And so the last time that we were together, I shared the first pillar of joy. And it's the pillar of perspective. And in those few minutes that we had, we explored this idea of our perspective, of how Mondays come, both on the calendar and sometimes they just come and come again. And these days come that are hard. But how do we take this perspective of stillness and calm and peace that we cultivate in our practice? How do we take that perspective into our Mondays, into our dark, rainy days, into our trying times in our life? I don't think it's an accident that the Dalai Lama named it our first pillar of joy. He could have chosen anything, but he chose perspective. And so let that one just kind of sit with you. And through our study and our time together across these next few days, we'll continue to add more pillars. But today our focus is the second pillar of joy that he has named, and that is humility. Humility. When I hear that word or I read it, I immediately get this image of the yoga posture of humble warrior. How you stand tall and strong and grounded in this warrior posture, and then you begin to bow your heart forward toward the ground, toward the earth. And that warrior posture becomes the humbled warrior. You're still the same person. You've just made a choice in how you see the world. Your heart is drawn forward. Your head is bowed. And so as I've studied this concept of humility and the lessons that the Dalai Lama gives us, He says the first thing you've got to understand is the word humility comes from the same root as the word human and humanity, and that's humus. And they all have the same root, which means we all came from one source and we're all going to return to that source. Meaning we all took a breath and had life given to us, and eventually we'll take our last breath. And that is the same regardless of the color of our skin or the language that we speak or the money in our bank account. We're all the same. And he says the first step to understanding humility is to recognize that we are one. And the things like our language and the color of our skin and our positions and our incomes, and those are secondary things. But we seem to make them primary focuses so often, and it causes us to feel separate, divided. But the Dalai Lama teaches that if we want to have joy, I think we all do, humility is our second pillar. And so I would invite you just to get a visual in your head as your eyes are gently closed. Even if you don't have a physical yoga practice that you have really participated in much, just picture this. This person is standing with their feet strong and grounded, and their strength coming up through their legs. And they take a big breath in and they lift their arms overhead. Their eyes follow those hands up toward the sky, and their heart just radiates. That's the warrior posture. And just picture that. Your heart is open and available and radiating out to the world. But then all of a sudden, as you breathe out, in that same posture, your arms begin to lower. Your heart begins to melt forward toward the earth, and your head begins to bow. There's a softening in that warrior. Still the same person. The feet haven't moved. The strength is still there. But that warrior represents this idea that I'm not any better than you, and you are no better than I. And we are no better than them, whoever them is. We are the same. We all take that breath in. We all let that breath go. We all hurt and feel sorrow. And we all laugh and feel happiness. We are the same. And the lesson for us is that if we truly want to experience authentic joy in our lives, the kind of joy that doesn't keep us from suffering, and it doesn't keep us from being sad or getting frustrated, it's deeper than those things are. If we want to experience that on a regular basis in our lives, we've got to cultivate humanity, humility, humanness, oneness. And so I want us just to spend these next few minutes just in quiet. But I want to share with you a quote that the Dalai Lama says when he talks about this idea of humility and how he checks himself when he comes upon someone. He says, each time I see someone, I pray, may I not feel superior to them, but rather in the depth of my heart, may I fully appreciate the person who's in front of me. And so as we sit in quiet, each of us in our space, I would invite you, if you feel comfortable, picture someone that you struggle with. Picture someone where maybe there's a little bit of discord, and they're a part of your life, a part of your path, a part of your everyday goings and comings. And see if these words, the Dalai Lama, could help with how you see that person. He gave us perspective as the first pillar, and today he gives us humility. May I look on this person and feel appreciation for the person who's before me. It's not easy. It's work. But if we really want joy, it's work that is worth it. So let's just pause, breathing in and breathing out, trying to cultivate humility and see appreciation for the person whose face is in your mind's eye. Continuing to breathe where you are. Realizing this path is worth it. The cultivation of joy is worth it. And that the ultimate source of our ability to find it is our ability to see the oneness in all of humanity. And so before we close our time, I would invite you just right where you are, still picturing in your mind that person, that one face, the face that represents a person that you can't change, and honestly, it's not your job to change them. But see that face with that same description I gave you of this warrior posture in yoga. Their feet are strong and grounded to the earth. Their legs are strong and rooting them down. They breathe in and lift their arms over their head, and their face looks up toward the sky. And their heart begins to open and radiate. And then as they exhale, the hands begin to fall forward. The heart begins to be drawn toward the earth, and the head begins to bow. Even that person, the one with whom we have some discord and some struggles, they too represent humanity. They too possess the ability to feel humility. And maybe the way we cultivate it in them is we begin to see it in them. I don't think it's an accident that he gave us perspective as the first pillar and humility as the second. Because the number one stumbling block to most of our things in life have to do with our relationships. So if you could hold that face, see them strong as a warrior, see them humbled and surrendered, maybe your perspective of them will begin to shift. Again, they may still be the same person with the same habits, the same behaviors, but your perspective will have changed. And like that quote said, you will look upon this person with appreciation. And the thing I will share with you is the joy you're going to cultivate is worth the work. Namaste.